at this level and where we are, everybody's doing decent shit. What sets you apart, and how are you gonna leave your mark on this world? Because I can tell you right now, if my legacy that's left behind is brown chicken, brown cacao, a cocktail I
I'm not gonna let you live that down at this point. I'm gonna be like, just now and again, I'll be like a voice
so
message.
brown chicken, brown.
So, 3 cents. This is another episode of Bar Talks by 3 cents. I've lost my voice. It's going to be an interesting one, I think, because normally I'm like, hey, this person is this person and this person and this person. I feel like if anyone has not been living underneath a rock for the last maybe 10 years, I would say that they should know who Kate Gerwin is. So Kate Gerwin, I don't know which camera I'm meant to be looking at. For me, when I first met you, it was Bols Around the World. And that was the first time a female bartender won a global cocktail comp in the history of cocktail comps.
In the history of flair, cocktail, whatever. First female global champion.
Right,
Yes.
which is really interesting. Which is not the point of...
It's not the point at all,
really
and like for a long time people would always go, what's it feel like to, be a female? And it was like, I don't know, I'm a bartender, and I'm proud of that. I'm glad that, those things happen, and, other people, representation and all that, but like, I want a global comp.
Simple as that.
I want a competition.
Do you not think that when people single out your gender, it's almost like it's a weird thing? Because bartender is a non-gender specific term.
So I think there has to be, it's a circle. So at first, when people aren't being represented, you have to acknowledge it so that other people can see the representation and be like, oh, they did that, I can do it too. But then after a while, I think there has to be a circle of, now that we're working towards this, it just needs to be about other things. Mm-hmm. And eventually, hopefully, it circles back into this area where none of those things matter. Right. And it's not about that. But I do think in the beginning, there is a certain gender, a certain race, or something dominating. It is important to acknowledge it so that it can be fixed.
How long have you been in the industry now?
So I started out in the wine industry, and if we count that, in my 20s, 20, 21, I started shoveling grapes. I wanted to be a winemaker. I didn't start, I know.
I love that.
I didn't fit in real well in the wine world.
Surprise, surprise.
Shocking, right? Utterly shocking.
20 years ago.
20 years ago. So it was a struggle for me, which made me bitter. Mm-hmm. So I was doing the wine thing. My ex-husband and I opened a restaurant. It was fine dining, wine focused, and people here in New Mexico wanted cocktails because it wasn't then, and now so a wine market.
Right.
And people would come in like, we want a margarita, or we wanted this, and finally I was like, put some freaking drinks on the menu. And I did, and people were like, oh, these are really good. Wow, this is amazing. And
surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, great. So now we're a cocktail bar. We started winning awards. We started getting recognition. We won a Sante Award. We got flown out to Napa, which is where I actually used to live. I met Charlotte Voicey.
Oh.
And Charlotte's like, we need more strong women in the industry. Have you make amazing cocktails. You should really do more of this. And I was like, yeah, I'm into wine. I'm a sommelier. She's like, have you ever heard of Tales of the Cocktail? I shit you not.
No.
And I'm like, nope. And she's like, well, we do this big party, William Grant and Sons, it's this big thing. You should come to Tales. You want to work this party? And I was like, yeah, I'll come check it out. No worries. And I went to Tales and was like, oh, fuck, these are my people. Mm. It was the first time I felt people were looking me in the eye. They were talking to me. They were asking me where I'm from. They wanted to hear my story. They cared about what I was doing in New Mexico. And I was like, I relate to these people. And they seem human and they're empathetic. And I love this. And then I started doing the groupie thing.
As we all do.
We all do. I was fascinated. It was the time of Gaz and everybody, and I was obsessed with Dale DeGroff, and I just wanted to learn more, and I wanted to be a part of this world. So I started reading books, and I started making drinks, and I started entering in competitions. And I have this thing I say now that, collaboration over competition, and I think it's really important. I think it's this whole circle thing. When you first start out, you're very competitive. I'm a competitive bitch, and I try real hard not to be, but it was just something I really I excelled at and I was good at and I was winning a lot of competitions. And I just started like slaying competitions. And I was winning regionals, and then I won a couple national comps. And then I got to represent US in the Bols final. And back in the day, it was Bols and World Class had just started out. But Bols was like when you did it, like Bols was the comp.
Yeah.
That was the global comp. It was a pretty big deal. I was the first American to win Bols.
Yeah.
And it was big. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm a bartender.
Upgrade.
Yeah.
Level up.
I
think you made it like a carbonated milk drink.
So I made a milk fizz. It was funny because everybody had used Geneva and base spirits. I used 3 different liqueurs.
Yeah.
I made, it was called brown chicken brown cacao after brown chicken brown.
Oh God.
That was my idea in my head.
And you were shooting down my suggestions for cocktail names yesterday. All right, all that sass. Brown chicken brown. Back in those early competition years, the average age of the bartender was much older.
It was.
And they were more experienced.
I've seen the look and feel and demographic and whatever of Tales changed so much in the 12 years I've been going. Obviously it used to be smaller. Age range was so much higher. The conversations were a lot different. Some of it great, and some of it needed to change.
Times change,
as they should.
Most people, they spend their whole life in the hospitality industry, very often with the goal of opening their own venue.
Right.
Or they get to that point where they feel like they want to open their own venue. Not always they start off like that, right?
Right.
And your story is quite interesting because you're like, oh, cool, I had a restaurant already. And then when I met you, you were managing places.
Yeah, I was doing consulting all over the place. Bismarck, Washington, North Carolina.
But you've been at, what I'm saying is, I think that where I'm going with this is like, you've already at the level where a lot of people want to be at some point in their career, and you're like already here.
Yeah, I mean, I was 32, 33, 34 when I started bartending. I won Bols at 34. So like I was already...
And how old were you when you had your restaurant?
When we first opened it, I think we opened it, I was 28.
You were at an ownership level.
Correct.
So your viewpoint and your responsibility and your accountability is different.
Right.
A lot of people forget that when you become a bar manager, you're not a bartender anymore. That's a whole different thing. And then when you get to GM or ownership, it's a whole different thing.
It is.
So where I'm going with this, what I want to ask you is, as someone who's now at this point been either a general manager or an owner for so many years, if there's any advice, if there's any learnings, if there's any wisdoms that you can throw out, or how has your ownership style changed?
When we wanted to open a bar, I was literally like, okay, I'm gonna take all the shit I've learned, all the mistakes I've made, all the crap I hated from every owner I worked for that didn't see the vision and didn't understand, and we're gonna turn it into something great. Everything in here is like something that someone told me wouldn't work or I couldn't do.
Oh, shit.
Literally, like the tables, building them so that people couldn't move them. Well, we can't have that. We won't be able, I was like, yeah, but we hate it when people move our tables. What if they're huge, big rock, stone heavy and no one can move them? And everything that I always wanted to do that someone told me wouldn't work pretty much happened in here.
I've spoken to bartenders who become bar owners, be like, I will never be this kind of owner. And then they start owning a bar, and
they become that owner.
They become exactly the very thing that they beat their chest that they would never become. How do you approach being an owner of a bar, and how do you treat yourself versus how you were treated, for example?
It was the whole ethos of happy, like how do we change the fabric of how people are treated? And it was like during the pandemic and kind of after, when a lot of us were in that stage of everyone's, oh, you're gonna pivot, you're gonna find a new job. I don't have a pivot that I want. I love my industry. This is all I ever want to do. It's important to empower your staff, to have a voice, to feel confident, to want to be heard, to want to change things, to be part of your fabric. But also, there's situations where you have to remember that it's a business and you're not doing them any good if the business isn't sustainable. So we have a different business model. We operate as a distillery. We either source or purchase our own spirits, and that allows us to have a different profit margin. That profit margin is generally fueled right back into the staff. So we pay here in New Mexico triple minimum wage plus tips. We do health insurance for the staff, which
is a big thing.
It's huge, and let me tell you, it's freaking expensive. It's almost as much as our rent, but we consider it a non-negotiable. My staff is happy to work here. also know that they're taking care of the growth of this company, ensures the growth of them and their longevity. We hope one day to create generational wealth for all of our staff. They want the guests to be happy.
There's a phrase I like to throw around about why I think bars are so significant within just social society. Man walks into a bar, discovers the world. Because everything on the back bar has got culture behind it, everything, history behind it. And it's almost like I feel like the greatest strength any bartender, besides being a nerdy fuck and knowing historical cocktails or techniques, the best thing they could do is travel, because the stories they could be able to tell, the connections they can make with everything.
Everything. So I'm very blessed. I've gotten to go a lot of places, and every place I've been has taught me a little bit more, not only about the world, but how to be a different person and see from different perspectives.
Do you think that there's almost like an alternative US when it comes to drinking culture and cocktail culture?
It's a numbers game. It's getting the people here. I don't work with brands. I'm not paying out of my pocket for all these pop-ups, for all these judges to come. I don't want to play that game. No award is worth that to me. It's a lot of money, and I'm going to be real honest. The people that pay my bills are the people that walk through that door and live here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They don't give a flying fuck about World's 50 Best. They don't, most of them probably don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
They don't. Now, when we got Best New American Cocktail Bar, it hit the news. It definitely, we saw an influx, but it wasn't because people knew what Tales of the Cocktail on Forbes was, although I tell you they know now here.
No, yeah.
It was, because we got, best bar team afterwards, and people are like, oh, you won that award.
Well, the local news probably woke up.
It was the local news that highlighted us and said, these guys are like, they got best in the country, and people were like, in Albuquerque? So
we're good?
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, we have these things?
So you have your little champion, your local
champion.
So
it's great, and it helped us, and I everyone wants to be recognized, but to me, it's the balance of, and I mean, we all play the game to the extent, and you have to decide is to what level is good for your business, and does it. So I travel a lot, and I'm getting exhausted, and I always think to myself, does this benefit my bar, my staff, and my community? If I can find a benefit to the staff, the bar, and the community, then I want to do it. If I'm doing it just because I want to be seen and be cool, I'm okay.
I had this thought the other day there's no Bruce Wayne sort of characters in the bar world. In terms of their multi-billionaires, vigilantes.
No, I know, I'm just like...
But the way you got into position was great. I had this thought when sitting at the Spirits Awards last year, where after seeing every single person who won an award come and give pretty much the same fucking speech. They're like, it's been so hard, my life is so difficult, but now I've won. And then they kind of, it almost felt like America's Got Talent or American Idol.
I didn't say that at all.
No, I'm saying most.
I know.
So it felt like it was American Idol.
Yep.
They come in, they tell you how shit their life is.
Look at what I did.
Then they go show their talent and walk off all happy. And I'm like, that's so fucking sad. Is that you, or is this another image?
I think a lot of it is an image. I went up and was like, take care of your fucking staff. Because I believe that's why we're successful. At this level and where we are, everybody's doing decent shit. What sets you apart, and how are you gonna leave your mark on this world? Because I can tell you right now, if my legacy that's left behind is brown chicken, brown cacao, a cocktail
I'm not gonna let you live that down at this point. I'm gonna be like, just now and again, I'll be like a voice.
So, brown chicken, brown. If people 10, 20 years ago are now owning bars and health insurance is normalized and profit structures change, and there's more distillery bars, and there's more people being able to think outside the box, making their box bigger and doing other things, and they go, well, yeah, we watched Kate do it, and then I'm not saying then we had an idea, but we saw that it could be done, so then we took her idea and we went further with it. That's the fucking legacy. That's the things that we do, and that's why it's all worth it, because the cocktails and the things, cool. I love making cocktails. I love it when guests go, oh, this is amazing, and you've tapped into that thing. But the real goal for me is, how do we make this fucking sustainable, and how do we make people fall in love with what we do, so that many, many years from now, we're the Wolfgang Pucks and the Emeralds and the
Nobus.
But that's who I think we deserve to be. When we opened the bar, I had, I think, $1,200 to get the bar open, hope we made enough to pay payroll, get our orders in, and pay my rent. And I was like, I literally, like, we were kind of like, well, I hope it works.
Which is a really terrible way to do business, right? And so where I'm going with this is that I think that because everybody starts off in a difficult place, and then any sort of opportunity they do get in any position they get, and maybe they get access to do a TV show or a brand gig that's super well paid, or they gotta get on a list, whatever it is, there comes a moment where they're like really scared.
It's like holding it in. It's mine, and I'm scared, and I don't want anyone to take it from me.
Especially when they get comfortable in that position, especially when the travel comes or the day rates get exponential. So there becomes this fear. And this.
I call it the world of scarcity. I think a lot of us live in a world of scarcity. As humans, we think of the world as a pie. And if we give someone a slice of pie, it means there's less pie for us. And the world is not fucking pie. Just because you get a slice of pie does not mean there's less pie left over for you. You go to the fucking kitchen and you bake another goddamn pie. Because it's not binary, it's not one or the other. The world is not a binary place where it's this or that. But we get in this idea of like, oh, they won it, why didn't I win that award? Well, they did that, why don't I do that? And then we start doing this. And we're like, well, I don't want them to have my pie because I need the fucking pie. And what we forget is we just go bake another fucking pie.
Well, speaking of lovely, delicious gin and having to be in New Mexico, there is a lovely little gin we have at this table right now.
We are. As above, so below. Big fan of Kaylee Shoemaker. She used to work for Stranahan's. She pretty much, in my opinion, hand-built Hanger One by herself. She moved to New Mexico. We have a lot of people moving to New Mexico because we have great legislation, great quality of life, and great cost of living. So she opened a distillery in Santa Fe. She does single malts and gin. And this gin I love. It's like an expression of New Mexico. So we have pinon. And I don't know if the allergies here. We have juniper freaking everywhere here. It is it is a weed. Pinon nuts, which pine nuts.
Pine nuts.
They're literally on the ground everywhere, all over the fucking place here.
Cool.
So it's sage, pinon, juniper, local. It to me is very New Mexico. I love it. I love her. I love what they're doing, and it's, in my opinion, the next big kind of craft distillery. I think she's going to do some really great things with her single malts as well.
I really like how it says here it's like a high desert American dry gin.
Yeah.
And you know the best thing about it? It smells like gin. Like everything we've seen happen in the last 4 years in the bar industry, and every year it seems to be new developments. A good example of this is the whole move towards holicity and mental health and wellness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the people leading that movement were people who partied like a motherfucker before that, did all the drugs, have all of the worst stories, and then they all hit a midlife crisis or a wall or something happened that had to drastically alter their course.
Right.
And now they're doing all this holistic stuff.
Right.
And one of the things I find, I don't know the answer, it's ironic in the industry, is that people love extremism. People love outliers. They love these extreme situations. The person who parties the hardest, the person who has the best this, the biggest ice cube, the longest fucking rotovap condensation bullshit. The point is they love balance, being in the middle, being more like not too left, not too right, being more central is not cool.
I mean, yeah,
right?
It's extremism, it's maximalism.
And I know this is a terrible, possibly metaphor, but like the person who went in jail for 30 years and then comes out and believes in Jesus Christ and is now a Bible basher, they've taken one extreme thing and then they've replaced it with another extreme thing. They're not necessarily healthy. They just changed, instead of killing people, now they're like annoying the shit out of you with the Bible. Again, not necessarily
but like
best
instead of partying all the time, now I'm sober, now I'm healthy, now I go to therapy, this is the way.
Exactly. They're still, the behavior hasn't changed. They haven't, they've just changed what they're talking about.
Right. I am very outspoken about my opinions. They're just my opinions. I tell people all the time, like, do I agree with this? No. If you want to do it for your own body, your own bar, or your own place, I don't give a shit. But don't tell people they're wrong for doing these things. Yeah. And that's kind of where I kind of venture out in, is like, you know, you don't agree with free pouring? Do I think you're wrong? Absolutely. Can I prove you wrong? Probably. If you don't want to free pour in your bar, don't. But don't tell other people they're not good because they're free pouring.
Well, this is my favorite thing about capitalism, is that you don't have to participate.
Yeah, it's okay.
If I don't like this place, I will get up and I will not leave my money here.
Bye.
This is where I think, maybe call me weird, but like having been born in a previously socialist country where the government was telling you how to talk, how to dress, there was only 9 haircuts allowed for men. And even though I wasn't born in that country, that hangover is, I don't, stop telling me what to do.
Right.
Stop telling me how to behave. Am I actually breaking the Geneva Convention? Am I hurting anyone?
Don't worry about it.
No, so stop telling me.
You don't like throwing cocktails? Don't throw cocktails in your bar. But don't say
like that fucking Instagram was some random bar.
But don't say that anybody who's doing it is just showboating or just doing this. They found a purpose, there's a reason for it. Just don't do it. It's okay, but don't tell people they're clowns for doing it.
What is the best thing about bartending?
The people, the friendships.
What's the worst thing about bartending?
The long nights, and the ego and the drive to want to fit in and to want to be a part of something, so that we push ourselves into a mold that we think is the acceptable mold instead of being ourselves and being authentic. I think we all do it to an extent, and I think it's getting better, but I think that's the worst thing, is that we emulate what we see success as, and sometimes the people that we see in successful positions aren't as successful as we think. They're faking it just like the rest of us. So having real honest conversations about what success looks like and feels like and looks like, and trying to understand that it can come in many different forms. If you don't do pop-ups, and you don't do the circuit, and you don't go to tails, that doesn't mean you're not successful. It doesn't mean you don't have a great business. And it doesn't mean you can't change the industry.
Mic drop.
Kate, out.
Thou shalt not try me.
And we all do it. I, to the extent that I feel comfortable, I play the game. But I constantly have conversations with myself as to the why. Does this serve a purpose? Am I going to benefit my community, my industry, or am I doing it because I think it's what I need to do? And I've more and more cut out the things that I don't think have the benefit, and I'm just doing to either have some fun or be cool. Because I'll tell you what, the fun isn't as fun anymore after a while.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I think that's a really good way to end it.
Yeah.
Chin chin.
Cheers. Love you.